everyone, Simon here. So this is one of those stories that might go on a few episodes. So if you guys aren't into the longer cliffhanger stories, I understand. Leave now. So in previous videos I've mentioned a girl that worked in my bar. In fact, she was in the first bar from the beginning, and then I moved to Soy 7 bar. This girl I called Ruthless, but her name was Moy. And this is the story of Ruthless and a nice, again, English guy called Matt. Well, it was Matthew, but he liked to be called Matt. Now, Matt was 40 years old when I first met him, and at that time Moy was 30. Moy had been in the industry from a young age, let's say 18, and she's ruthless. Now, Moy was, she was again quite tall. She was 5 foot, well, same as me, about 5'8", 5'9". She had jet black hair, long down to the shoulders, slim, so she looked even taller being so slim. But she had, her face looked a bit, it was different from a standard normal Thai girl. She almost had a bit of, maybe it was Lao or Cambodian look, maybe even a bit Chinese, but she had dark skin. She was from Isan, but very dark skin, but pretty, very pretty. Quite good English. She'd been in the business a long time, so it wasn't impeccable, but it was quite good. You could understand, and she could understand you. So about 1 week into opening the Soy 7 bar, I was there in the morning as usual. You know, opened the bar, sat down having a coffee, and in walks Matt. Really, really nice guy to talk to. He was vertically challenged, so he was only about 5 foot tall, very slim, skinny, and he was a lorry driver, HGV, heavy goods vehicle driver, back in the UK, and previously married, no kids, marriage had gone wrong, broken up, was living, renting a little small room in the UK. Now, he'd been to Thailand over the previous year twice. Quite a confident lad, very charming, quite funny. He came into the bar, and it was probably early morning. I had a coffee. I had the TV on, there was some sports on or something. When he came in, it was only me in there, plus I think Toy, the bar girl, tomboy. And he got a coffee, and he came over, started chatting, and yeah, we chatted for quite a while. He was a little bit overconfident with his knowledge of Thailand and the scene. Maybe he didn't know as much as he was saying he knew, but really nice lad. And on that morning he came in, Moy was living upstairs in the room with a few other girls. She came down with another girl, I think, and just came through, walked through the bar, smiled at him. They went off out to get breakfast and food. Anyway, we were chatting. It seemed a good hour, it must have been. And then he said that he liked the bar, and he'd come back that evening. Now, he was over for a 2-week holiday, so this was the beginning of his holiday. Dressed, I can't really remember, but he didn't stand out as the sandals type, if you know what I mean. He went off, and later that evening, you know, customers are starting to come in. The girls are all working, and he came back in, and he made a beeline. I was sat at the back of the bar, playing with the computer on the music or something. He came in, said hi, bought me a drink. So stopped what I was doing and chatted to him. And Moy, even though Apple was the top girl in the bar and had first pick, Moy made a beeline for him, and I don't think Apple would have been interested, you know. He wasn't enough bling hanging off him, didn't have the sandals and things. He wasn't classed as a #1 customer. And Moy made a beeline and started chatting, so I sort of retreated, as you do. And they chatted all evening, and sure enough, Matt paid the bar fine and took Moy off. Next day, in fact, it went on for his whole holiday. Every day they'd come in the lunchtime, pay the bar fine, have a drink, off they'd go. And they just wandered around Pattaya for his 2 weeks. He didn't seem to go with any other girl. He just stuck with Moy every day, paid the bar. End of the 2 weeks came, he had to go back to the UK, and he came in the bar, and he was quite sad that he had to go, and he thought Moy was fabulous. Such a pretty girl, clever, intelligent. She'd pressed all the right buttons as usual, and he thought she was great. And it was a pretty normal departure. It was like, ta-da, and off you go. And his next booked holiday was about 8 months' time, so he said he'd be back. And off he went. Moy came back into the bar as usual, carried on working, going with other customers. So 2 weeks pass, which isn't a long time when you're living there. It flies by. 2 weeks pass, and again I'm in the bar in the morning. I think I had a couple of girls with me, but not Moy. In walks Matt again. I was surprised but not surprised, because so many of the guys keep coming back really quickly. And he came in, and how are you, Simon, and coffee, and sat down, and he said, any idea where Moy is? I'd come to surprise her. And I didn't have a clue, because it was first thing in the morning. I couldn't remember the night before as usual, and so I mean, I don't know. I said, could be asleep upstairs, could be, and I was blunt with him. I said she could be out with a customer. I said I have no idea. And he then sort of said, well, I'll hang about a bit. And he said, oh, I really like Moy. I've come back quick. He said, I'm gonna have another couple of weeks here. Yeah. He said, I can't afford it, but really had a great time, and it was horrible going back to work for a couple of weeks. And he was self-employed lorry driver, so I think he could please himself when he worked. And he sat chatting, and I said to him, well, and I remember telling him that, you know, Moy is a bar girl, and she goes with customers, and she's been in the trade a while. You've mentioned, Matt, that you know the system and everything, and so I'm surprised that you're falling a bit for her. And he's, well, yeah, I know the system, but she's a little bit different from the other ones, and she's a little bit older and wiser, and she really makes me feel good. Are you special, Matt? Is she special? Is she the special one? And I teased him a bit, and I just remember it. You know, Matt, be careful. You know the score. You've heard the stories. Yes. He's like, I know all the stories, and I'm a wise man. And okay. Anyway, Moy didn't appear. She wasn't upstairs. I asked one of the girls, and no, she wasn't there. She was out. I didn't know if she'd gone out with a customer or just gone out with other girls for the night. And I said to him, well, don't know. He didn't have a number. I didn't have a number on her. Frozen wasn't there to get a number, so I said, gotta have a wander, come back later. And off he went. And he did come back. It was only a few hours and he was back again mid-afternoon, and he sat there. Now luckily Moy had come back in that time and gone up. She'd been with a customer. She'd come back, and one of the girls had told her, Matt's back. And she's probably rubbing her hands together. So it felt lucky that she wasn't coming back in with the customer and going again. So she was prepared, and Matt came in mid-afternoon, got one of the girls to go up. Yeah, Moy's here. And Moy come down, and dressed a bit better than normal as well. Ran across to him, threw her arm, you know, it was as if they'd been in love for years, just all over him. And yes, that was it again. 2 weeks, bar finder every day, and they just wandered around Pattaya. Didn't do much by the sounds of things. I think they went across to one of the islands, but just 2 more weeks together. And inevitable, the second week comes to an end, and Matt comes in the bar. They came in on the morning, I think, before he had to go, and Moy went upstairs and he sat, bought me a coffee, I think. And he told me how he'd really fallen for Moy. She's really special, she's different. Yeah, I said, you know, Matt, be careful, what are you doing? You've told me you know everything. And he said, yeah, she's older, she's 30, she's had enough of all the scene, and I'd really like to spend more time with her. Okay, I said, yeah, well, you've been warned. And so he said he's got to go back to the UK. He hasn't got much money left. He said he's got to go work. He's got no choice. He can't get back quick, and he can't afford to take her out of the bar and pay her salary while he's back. He said it's a bit, you know, hurts, but he's going to go back, try and send her a bit of money and see if he can get her out of the bar. Okay, and off they go. She takes him to the airport, comes back at night, back to the bar as normal, off with the next customer. He shoots off back to the UK. So twice over, falling for Moy, and I'm thinking, well, I'm not going to see him now from what he said for the 8 months maybe before he comes. And it does, a couple of months goes by, I think nearly 3 months, and he turns up again. Running in the bar, morning again. Luckily again, Moy is upstairs. She hadn't been with a customer. He comes in, coffee. One of the girls come down and I check, yeah. Off she goes and tells Moy. Moy comes running down again, nicely dressed, all over him. And he sits and he tells me that this time he wants to go with Moy to her village and meet her parents. He's not sure how long he's here for. And he basically pay bar for a week, he said, and then see what happens. So he did, paid the bar. Moy goes up, she's happy, she'd go home and see her folks. She wasn't due to go for a while, so packs her bags and off they go, back to the village. It was near Khon Kaen, somewhere to the east of Khon Kaen, but I can't remember the village. And it was a village in Isan. Now, from what Moy told me, her family had no money and they lived in a house, relatives' house. So maybe Moy's mother's sister had a house and they lived behind that house in a bit of a tin shed, no money. And I don't think Matt had been to a village before, to be honest. But they shot off back to the village and met the parents. Now it's a bit sketchy the information I can remember. But they spent only 2 or 3 days there, and then they turned back up into Pattaya, back up at the bar. Moy didn't have her bags with her, so she was obviously going to stay with him in a hotel. And Matt came in all happy and in love. Moy went off to get some food, chatting with the other girls. Matt sat by me, and I remember him saying, her family is fabulous, lovely time, small house. Moy and myself are thinking of getting married. And I said to Matt, you've only known her a few months and you're going to get married. What sort of marriage? What are you going to do? He said, we're going to have a ceremony in the village. I'm going to go back to the UK and get some money, work for a few months. I'm going to take Moy out the bar now, and she's going to go back to the village, start arranging for a village ceremony and marriage. And I'm going to come back in a few months and we're going to get married. That's where I'm going to leave it on this first episode. It's so obvious at the moment what's going to go on. You think these stories are so similar to many others. Maybe. And I will catch you on the part 2. Let's see what happens then. Bye for now.